It seems to me, first of all, from what I understand from doctors, that's really rare. If it's a legitimate rape, the female body has ways to try to shut that whole thing down.
And when it comes to establishing your worldview, I was curious, what newspapers and magazines did you regularly read before you were tapped for this to stay informed and to understand the world?
I've read most of them, again, with a great appreciation for the press, for the media.
But like what ones specifically? I'm curious that you...
all of them, any of them that have...
Can demonic spirits attach themselves to inanimate objects? The answer is yes.
Welcome to Twat Waffle of the Week.
There is so much shit going down concerning SCOTUS. My head is spinning. I can only imagine what those that I'm familiar with working in the human rights field are feeling. I do know I have many depressed friends. With that said, I have no plans of adding my 2 cents beyond tonight as to what's going on. Now, that is subject to change. But do not take my silence as approval of the draft opinion concerning the termination of pregnancy. It's not. I remember pre-Roe v. Wade. Granted, I was quite young, but the stories I remember did not have a happy ending. The elimination of Roe v. Wade is just the beginning, as many rights other than abortion will be under attack as well, from access to contraception, i.e. Griswold v. Connecticut, gay rights, aka Lawrence v. Texas, and Oberfeld v. Hodges in 2015, as well as interracial marriage, Loving v. Virginia. If the QOP gains control of the House and Senate, our democracy is over. Theocracy will rule the day. All I can say to this is get the fuck out and vote. Vote like your life depends on it. Because in all honesty, it does. Vaccination for CV-19 does not cause AIDS. While Ron Johnson didn't actually state it does, he didn't really push back against Calendar's false and dangerous claims. He said it may be true. What's worse, Johnson is helping to spread an already debunked notion. If you remember, anti-vaxxer Sherry Tenpenny already has been refuted. Calendar and Tenpenny run in the same circles.
The way to approach this is from a criminal point of view, because that's what has happened. And until we start holding people accountable, Fauci, number one, you're going to see people still falling out, still getting sick. You've got more than 100 doctors here, all of whom will tell you that these shots caused vaccine-induced AIDS. They purposefully gave people AIDS, right? They knew this. The FDA, 2 weeks prior to their emergency use authorization license, had an internal review, an internal audit function that had the infamous page 16. They knew all of this, and yet they licensed these shots anyway. And then you have the trickery with interchangeable or not, and is it a legally distinct thing or not? This is criminal intent. And until we address this as being that, we're stuck. We're not going to get over this.
So let me challenge you there.
Please.
That's way down the road. You got to do one
Perhaps.
step at a time. I mean, you got to do one step at a time. Everything you say may be true, okay? But right now, the public views the vaccines as largely safe and effective, that vaccine injuries are rare and mild. That is the narrative. That's what the vast majority of the public accepts. So until we get a larger percentage of the population with their eyes open to, whoa, these vaccine injuries are real. Why? You know, you
Wouldn't
got to do step by step. You can't leap to crimes against humanity. You can't leap to another Nuremberg trial.
And to be clear, there is no such thing as VAIDS, or vaccine-induced AIDS. It is entirely fictional. The COVID-19 vaccine does not compromise the body's immune system, but rather stimulate it to recognize and more easily defend against the disease. And this is not foreign territory for Johnson, as he has in the recent past touted numerous anti-vaccine talking points. So yes, he qualifies as an anti-vaxxer. For example, he ranted about Anthony Fauci overhyping the AIDS crisis in the 1980s. Johnson has also been an advocate for the unproven use of ivermectin. And he has also suggested in a town hall that gargling with mouthwash could be an effective treatment. So yeah, this dude's a douchebag. It's bad enough fighting cranks like Callender, but when it is elected officials, it makes it even more difficult. Rojo should know better. What a quagmire this has become. Although, I think I'm missing the why of it. I don't really see this case as being a religious liberty case if the city is applying their standard equitably. So I'm missing something. I'm just not sure what yet. Personally, I believe that all flags should be banned, but for the Stars and Stripes, state flag, and county type flags. As far as I'm concerned, any of those flags that are displaying any type of religious icons need to be redesigned. But from my understanding, the debate is whether the flag is considered speech by the government. And when I say the flag, the Christian flag that said group wanted to fly in Boston. Why is this important? Because the city program that allows other private groups to raise and fly their own flags was not considered speech by the city. The court held the city could not refuse permission to fly a particular flag because of the views expressed. According to Nina Totenberg from NPR, quote, "The key," wrote Breyer, "was to what extent Boston actually controlled the messages on the flags. And the answer," he said, "was not at all. The city's lack of meaningful involvement," he said, "led the court to conclude that these flag raisings were not government speech, where the government can control its message, but private speech, in fact religious speech, that cannot be regulated by the government," end quote. Enter the Satanic Temple, who is requesting to fly a flag over Boston City Hall after the U.S. Supreme Court ruled this week that the city violated free speech rights of a conservative activist seeking to fly a Christian flag outside the downtown building. Quote, Lucian Greaves, the organization's co-founder, said in an email Wednesday that the group wants to show that religious liberty must mean respect for all forms of religious practice and religious opinion. When government officials are able to impose arbitrary restrictions on claims of conscience or to abridge the civic capacities of some based on their religious identity, we fail to be a free, democratic republic, he wrote in part. And just for an FYI, I included a link to the opinion of Shirtleff et al. V. City of Boston et al. And that's the case in question. I have heard some stupid shit in my day, but this takes the cake. Quote, Trump's infamous KOFFI tweet was actually code for the antidote to the 5G towers that were really designed to work with the COVID vaccines and essentially hack human beings. End quote.
KOFFI is COVFEFE. And so that's how it's spelled, okay? COVFEFE. Can't do it with the fingers when I'm doing like this. But anyway, KOFFI. And yes, people thought that was an error for spelling coffee. Like they haven't learned yet that President Trump doesn't really miss anything. If something is spelled, if he leaves out an L, he adds an R, he does, it's everything has a reason and a purpose. This is very strategic what is taking place. So KOFFI is, there are three from the table of elements. CO is for cobalt. V is for vanadium. Fe is 2 molecules of iron. This is the solution, the antidote to the 5G towers that were really designed to work with the vaccines and essentially hack us human beings.
Really?
And so what he implemented when he was telling KOFFI before, so they created, essentially, if I understand it correctly, some sort of magnet that they put at every pole, 5G pole, that essentially doesn't allow it to do the hacking that they wanted to do.
In order for this to be true, it would have to be shown that cobalt, vanadium, and iron can form a stable molecule. I've never heard of one. Quote, a woman who says that she's from a Nevada parents group unleashed an out-of-control rant on the Clark County School Board Thursday, attacking water rights, Planned Parenthood, school trips to Disneyland, claims about sexually confused teachers, and even accusing one member of having a box of pubic hair. The woman, who introduced herself as Stephanie Kinsley from My Children's Advocate, began by attacking the school board for discussing a sex education curriculum. End quote.
Yeah, which also California is where we happen to take our kids for Disneyland with our school trips.
Can we
Isn't
please
Disney
focus
under?
on 3.03?
No, I am.
We're not talking
Disney's,
about water
Disney
rights.
is. We're finding out it's super creepy and weird. California allows you to have sex with kids as long as there's a 10-year or less age difference. That's where we're taking our kids with our sexually confused teachers who don't have children of their own. I've been with my husband for 20-something years.
All right.
I never have to discuss my sex life in public because my 3 beautiful kids teach your girls not to let every guy come in them so they don't have to have abortions.
Ms. Kingsley,
Take control of your children.
Can
you ejaculate?
Absolutely no.
Don't let everyone ejaculate you. Control your own body. You don't have abortions. Planned Parenthood was founded to kill minorities.
We're going to.
Why are you cutting off my time?
You are completely out of order.
This is why
we are in a board meeting. This is out of order. Ms. Kingsley, please leave the dais.
No, you don't get it. You don't get to control. Hey, you have a box of pubic hair. You have a book of pubic hair you collected, Lola Brooks. I know about your book. I know about your book of pubic hair.
Thank you, Ms. Kingsley.
Quote, My Children's Advocate has a website that appears to be anti-LGBTQ rights, anti-mask, and anti-CRT. On its Facebook page, it is promoting Republican Joey Gilbert for governor. Its most recent post includes these hashtags: pound groomers, pound perverts, pound gender confusion, pound child abuse, pound woke teachers, pound save your kids, pound pedos, pound satanic, pound evil, pound agenda, end quote. I have heard some vile, hateful shit in my day, but this following clip pales in comparison. Radical right-wing commentator Josh Bernstein is confident that Ketanji Brown Jackson, Sonia Sotomayor, and Elena Kagan are responsible for the SCOTUS Roe leak and wants these, quote, 3 evil bitches investigated for treason, end quote.
Who leaked this information? Isn't it interesting that the child predator lover, right, the black militant leftist who hates white people and loves every single child sexual predator she's ever had in front of her, Ketanji Brown Jackson, isn't it interesting that for the first time in history, we have a Supreme Court leak of a draft opinion? Could it have been her? Possibly. Or perhaps maybe it was the Puerto Rican socialist, Sonia Sotomayor, another one who hates this country. And let's not forget the communist Jew, right? Elena Kagan. So I think it's probably one of these 3 evil bitches, if you want to know the truth. So Republicans should immediately go in there and confiscate these 3 judges' email communications, hard drives, computers, laptops, phones, find out who this leaker is, and charge them with treason.
Besides the hate, bigotry, misogyny, and racism wrapped up in a little over a minute, dude has no clue what treason is. According to the United States Code at Section 18 U.S.C. paragraph 2381, it states, quote, "Whoever, owing allegiance to the United States, levies war against them or adheres to their enemies, giving them aid and comfort within the United States or elsewhere, is guilty of treason and shall suffer death or shall be imprisoned not less than 5 years and fined under this title, but not less than $10,000, and shall be incapable of holding any office under the United States." End quote. The key point to the treason designation is basically war. The country has to be at war. So, we're currently not in any declared wars. According to source, quote, Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, Republican Georgia, claimed this week that Democrats are, quote, sacrificing babies on the altar of Baal, end quote, by supporting abortion rights for women. During an interview with host Joe Pagliarulo, Greene explained why Democrats are upset by a leaked Supreme Court ruling that would overturn Roe v. Wade, end quote.
Well, of course it is. You know, abortion seems to be their sacrament. It's the one thing that they hang on to, and they'll fight for harder than anything else, and that's sacrificing babies on the altar of Baal. That's how I see it, and they come to full anger and out of control responses. I saw Elizabeth Warren; she was completely angry, shaken as she was leaving the Supreme Court today, right, where she had just spoken on it. So we're going to see them come out, and they're going to fight for this. But, you know, the left doesn't care about violence. They always use it for their own political purposes, just like we saw the Antifa BLM riots in 2020, and they cheered those on, supported them and funded them, and even bailed out criminal rioters. We're going to see them come out probably and bring violence again so that they can keep their disgusting, evil ways and keep selling this awful lie to women that abortion is a way to solve problems, when in reality it isn't. It's murder of the most innocent people on planet Earth, and it's time to end.
She didn't even read the fucking book. Quote, Tuesday night, Washington State's Liberty Lake City Council voted 4-2 not to force the local public library to remove a popular award-winning LGBTQ book, Genderqueer, from its shelves. It was the second loss for Aaron Zasada, a local realtor, KREM reports. Zasada first tried to get the book banned by filing a complaint with the local library. The book, an award-winning graphic novel, a memoir about coming out as non-binary, has been popular with teens, but is housed in the adult section of the library, which anyone can access. It's also one of the most challenged books in the school libraries across the country. End quote. When I started tracking news for bizarre people and stories some 20-odd years ago, most of what I found was, well, hidden, for lack of a better word. I was told that it was just conspiracy, or it was just fringe. But now, it's mainstream. And the more vile, the better. While the lieutenant governor did not speak these words, her presence at the rally, in my opinion, provided explicit agreement with such sentiment.
Today's enemy, today's uniparty rhinos and liberal Democrats and communists intentionally mutilate themselves for the sake of being transgender. So the only way that they can ever reproduce is by stealing our kids. And then filling their brains with poison. That's how they operate. And we have to call them out. These are the people who want to steal and poison and groom and, yes, rape our children.
That's right. No way!
They're demonic. Literally, I think some of them are actually possessed by demons.
Yes.
I mean, do you agree?
Yes.
And that might seem like shocking language. But you know what? Good. Good. I'm glad that it is. Because sadly, the risk of being on the right side of history comes with the very real risk of being labeled an extremist or banned from the internet or jailed or even killed.
So that does it for this episode. And yes, there is more. Whether I get to it, another story. And with that, I present to you Professor Plink, a YouTuber that responds to various theological and ideological questions and various claims from a rationalistic and naturalistic approach. But in my opinion, he does so from a more layman's perspective. In other words, he doesn't drown you in deep philosophical droning and explains the opposite viewpoint, balancing the conversation. With that, I bid you all adieu. Peace out.